Hi, I'm Garm1, and this is Midgardia's Cool Crowdfunding Show. I'm here today with Richard Kelly. How's it going?
Going all right, and with you?
I'm doing pretty well. So, you're here to tell us about Deadbeats, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, Deadbeats is a tabletop role playing game that runs off of a deck of cards, and it runs off of the deck of cards sort of like you'd run a game off of a regular d20, in that you pull cards, the number on the card is used to try and hit your target number for your check. That's sort of like the core basis for the system. On top of that foundation, it builds a really fast combo based combat system where every time you take an action, you pull a card, you add your stat. If you hit a certain target number, you take another action. And there's mechanics in place to keep that from getting too out of control, but it's sort of on a fundamental level built to be a game where you do a lot of stuff really fast, really stylishly.
Right on. Yeah, I love a good brawler personally. I play tabletop games to beat the stuffing out of weird things, and Deadbeat seems like the game for me, quite frankly.
Yeah, it is built with an eye towards stuff like Devil May Cry, and also a fondness for like side-scrolling beat 'em ups. It actually came out of a system I wrote to try and like analyze how I felt about Callisto Protocol, which is almost in that same sort of space, somewhere in between like a side-scrolling beat 'em up and a 3D character action game.
Right on. Can you tell me a little bit about the setting of Deadbeats? Excellent name, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was one of those rare cases where like I started turning over the idea for the project in my head and the name just clicked instantly into place. Usually the name is a struggle or the name is what causes me to write the project. In this case, like it all sort of happened simultaneously. The setting of Deadbeats is the 1990s with a few little twists. Basically, Earth is a neutral territory between heaven and hell. Heaven and hell have been in this Cold War for a while, where neither of them is technically supposed to take territory on Earth, but both of them really want to take territory on Earth. So they do a little bit of proxy war, they do a little bit of like interfere in mortal politics, they do a little bit of like just go into places where the cameras aren't and intervene directly. And the result of this is a lot of suffering for mortals and also a badly paying, highly dangerous job for deadbeats, whose usual role is to push heaven and hell back out of the mortal world.
Right on. So like Hellblazer with a gig economy.
Yep, Hellblazer was absolutely an influence, especially like the parts that kind of zero in on how Constantine is not really put together as a person. He's doing his best. Um, and also like the parts of Devil May Cry that focus on how like Dante is also kind of struggling and like his agency isn't really raking in the money and he's good at fighting but at anything else it's kind of a coin toss.
The man can fight and order pizza, and that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, he needs some sort of support staff.
Which is a problem when there's only like one demonic incursion every 5 years.
Yep. Yeah. In Deadbeats, it's a little bit more frequent than that, and there's also other types of supernatural thing that are kicking around. Like you've got your werewolves, you've got your magic users, you've got other things that can be a threat to mortals. Um, but what you don't have is a support network for deadbeats, and what you don't have is like a lot of money associated with that job. It's a thing that people do because no one else is doing it, and someone needs to step up.
Yeah, it's like being a gas station attendant. You could go to
Yep.
university or you could pick this up.
Ah, yeah. In that sense, being a deadbeat is kind of a thing you fall into. Um, and it has its own economy as well. The book makes a distinction between like mortal money, which the main characters don't have very much of, and devil bucks, which are basically like bits of demons and angels that have sort of been like whittled off and are used as currency. And that's the stuff you use to buy your equipment. And your equipment is a big part of how your character plays.
Devil Bucks is a premium name, by the way.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with that one as well. Thank you.
I appreciate the distinction between what you spend on equipment and what you spend for like living a mortal life, because that does raise some questions in DMC occasionally. Though I think they do explicitly say that the way he supports himself between games is by selling off all of his weird devil equipment.
Oh, that's actually, I like that a lot as a gimmick.
Yeah, that's why you don't have any of your stuff at the beginning of the next game. It's because he's been
Yep.
pawning it to God knows who. The art is fantastic as well. Can you talk a little bit
I
about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I lucked out in the art department. The artists are Hodag, who did all of the interior illustrations, and Jonas Whitman, who I've worked with before, who did the cover and some graphic design. On the Kickstarter, I think it's currently just Hodag's stuff, but he did this really, really wonderful, evocative black and white, hand drawn on the same piece of paper artwork. When I was getting the art in from him, I noticed that like I received a lot of like four images all clustered together on the same like file, and I was a little bit curious. So I asked, "Hey, do you have these as individuals?" And he was like, "No, I drew it all on the same piece of paper and scanned it." Uh, just incredible talent, immense skill. I couldn't do that. I don't know if I know too many people who do that as their approach to art. But when I was talking with him, he mentioned that he was trained in like old school comics. So I think that's where his background comes from. Um, I don't want to misrepresent him, so please look him up on Twitter. Hodag, Hodag, fantastic artist, definitely worth following.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine drawing four things on the same page and not being terrified that you're gonna mess one of them up severely.
100%, yeah. That would be nerve wracking for me.
Are you paying this man enough to buy multiple pages to draw on?
I, I gosh, the problem with RPGs is that like there's never enough money to go around just in the scene in general.
Yeah.
So my like I will freely disclose that I am not able to pay very much for anything, and I am not receiving like a huge cut myself. Um, One of my goals, if I can build more audience, if I can get more of a foundation, is just to be able to shell out more for art because it's vital to like the spirit of a book.
Yeah, fair. And yeah, we talk a lot about like shuffling the same $20 bill but all around the whole community.
Yep. Yeah.
Also, I greatly appreciate your environmental commitment section where it's just PDF as the answer for every question.
Yeah, it feels like that aspect of Kickstarter specifically is really designed for like big manufacturing projects, and I like that it's there, but it's it doesn't apply as much to the indie RPG scene where print on demand is the quickest, most effective way to get a physical book to someone, and PDF is the lowest environmental impact option available.
Yeah. Although there are physical copies available at higher tiers, which I assume is POD through like
Yep.
DTRPG or something. Yeah.
Yep, drive through print on demand. There's there's definitely like there's room for me to like reach out to local print shops and figure out another distribution method. But every time I've considered it, I think for me specifically, it wouldn't be more effective than just going through like the big distributed system that already exists.
Yeah, yeah, trying to talk to like 300 different businesses doesn't sound like a fun time, frankly.
No, no, I'd enjoy that immensely. It's just that would be sort of another hat to wear, and it's something I'd like to do eventually, but it's not quite within scope for this one. I've already bitten off a lot to chew with this project.
That's fair. And speaking of chewing, tell me about the borscht recipe.
Yep. So one of the backer levels, or rather, many of the backer levels, involve at least a borscht recipe, and I say at least because it's now up to about 7 recipes. Um, I will preface this by saying I am not a terribly good chef. This is mostly me doing my best. But if you back at the shredded beets level or higher, you get a recipe for a beet green salad, quick pickled beet stems, borscht, beet kvass, beet molasses cookies, and a tangy beet spread for like dipping bread into.
I
Not originally part of my Kickstarter plan, and then as I was writing the stretch goals, I wrote shredded beets, and I realized I had to commit to the bit. Um,
Beats molasses cookies, huh?
Beet molasses is a really good source of sugar. It doesn't retain much of like the funk you'd expect from the beets. So you can make a molasses cookie, throw in some ginger, throw in some spices. It tastes totally normal.
The highest praise for any dessert. It tastes totally
Yeah,
normal.
beet molasses cookies, trademark. They're fine.
God. Um, gonna be honest, I'm not trying your recipes, but I appreciate that they're there.
That is extremely reasonable. Yeah, for most of them, like I tested the salad the other day, it came out great. I tested the pickle stems, they came out okay. I might need to make some changes to that one. I have a urn of beet kvass that is bubbling away on the counter right now that looks less fine. Honestly, I'm worried about that one. So,
I've never eaten anything made in an urn. Again, I'm gonna be honest here.
yep. I wanted to make a big batch so that I could use some of it as the souring agent for the borscht. And I slightly overestimated the size of jar that I would need for that, so it's to give a rough sense of proportions, maybe this big.
Oh lord, yeah. So if you back Deadbeats, not only will you get a cool game about devil hunting with a sweet like card combo and fatigue system, you could also, if you back at a high enough level, get a recipe for cookies that taste totally normal.
Honestly, I part of the reason why I'm doing the recipes is because it's something I'd love to see other games embrace more. Food's like a really fun way to world build, and it's a fun like addition to like the experience of a game. When Coyote and Crow did their custom recipes as part of their campaign, I was really psyched for that. Um, so if me fumbling my way through making borscht it inspires someone else to do the same, I will consider it a total success.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like if somebody were to do a Dungeon Meshi fan game or something, like that would be perfect.
Yep, and there are dozens of those underway as we
Oh
speak.
yeah. And like yeah, and it's not actually that unusual if you look at other genres of fiction. Like, there's an entire series of murder mysteries that come with the recipes that the characters are eating throughout. Um,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, that's like its own micro genre.
yeah. And of course, the pop culture cookbooks that have been doing numbers in the last like 5 years.
Yep.
If there's one thing I want in my life, it's the food from Overwatch 2, I guess.
I mean, actually, I'm intrigued. I don't think of Overwatch as being a particularly food-oriented setting. Now, now I want to know more.
I'm gonna make sure that's a real thing. Yes, it is a real thing. The Overwatch, the official cookbook from 2019.
All right, I will have a look at that after the interview, I guess.
Who knows? I look, maybe it's good. I eat junk 98% of the time, so I'm not gonna judge.
All good.
But yeah, deadbeats. I I've wanted to do like a monster hunting, you're all half demons kick the crap out of other demons thing for a long time. This is probably the perfect system for me, frankly.
Honestly, I'm thrilled. It's been really fun to playtest. Um, Again, this started as an attempt to fix Callisto Protocol. So the original version of the engine that I wrote for a game called Rotten Stars was very focused on survival horror and managing your resources and like limited numbers of consumables. And then I realized that if I just sort of tweaked the engine a little bit in the same way that they did with the Resident Evil engine to get Devil May Cry, I would get a totally different action focused game. And it's been
That's
fun just like continuously sort of tweaking the engine a bit to push it in that direction.
yeah. The Resident Evil Devil May Cry connection is such a weird piece of gaming history.
Yeah, and it's a good case for what an engine can do to shape the telling of a story.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. You look at Devil May Cry and go, how do you get that from Resident Evil? And then you look at Resident Evil 6 and you're just like, oh yeah, yeah, I see how this happened.
Yep.
Dude with like a lightning arm for like a third of the game. Yeah, good times.
Yeah. Well, you go from the you keep the fixed camera perspectives and you keep the horror atmosphere, but the one thing you do is you give the player more agency and like completely transforms the flavor.
Yep. Also the piece of art of the demon in a suit like inhaling pizza from the plate is
Yep.
incredible.
Yep, there's a couple of small allusions to the stuff that influenced Devil May Cry. That's either in the art or in the text. There's also an upgrade in the game for. I'll get into upgrades in a minute, but there's an upgrade for a weapon in the game called a bayonet. Bayonet spelled with two T's. So, a couple of Easter eggs in the text.
Gotcha. Took a second to click. Gotcha. Yeah, tell me about upgrades.
Yeah, so some of your character is your stats, and those stats mostly don't change. A much bigger part of your character is purchased with Devil Bucks. And that is your upgrades, that is your weapons, that is the things that determine what you can do outside of your basic capabilities. So, like, every character can attack, every character can rush down or back off. Um, every character can like do some basic positioning things to uh, set themselves up to attack or to make it harder for them to be attacked. And then you get the rest of the kit from equipment, and that gives you stuff like a backdash you can use to cancel attacks, an air juggle, abilities to like push your turn economy further, ways to set up cashing in for high damage, as well as all of the weapons that are in the game. The weapons are designed to encourage pretty different playstyles, and each one comes with its own roster of unique upgrades that you can purchase for it. And most of them are small enhancements, some of them completely change the way the weapon plays.
Right on. You a fighting game guy, Richard?
I like fighting games, and I am terrible at fighting games. So
Understandable.
I, I've spent a fair bit of time watching from the sidelines and only a little bit of time actually playing them.
Yeah, no, that is completely fair. Street Fighter lore is bonkers, but I have no intention of learning to actually play.
Street Fighter lore is wonderful. Guilty Gear lore is wonderful. There's a lot of like fluff in fighting games that's incredible, and I like a lot of the mechanical concepts as well. Because when you narrow the game down to one player versus one player, it has to feel fair and it has to feel compelling because it's such a compressed experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just sitting here like ticking off on my hand, air juggle, cash in. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, no, it's good
Yeah.
stuff.
There's some fighting game references. I think there's an armored punish upgrade you can get as well. That lets you take damage from an attack and then immediately respond with your own attack, stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, no, it sounds like a wonderful synthesis of a lot of influences into its own like own wild demon punching thing, which is excellent.
Yeah, hopefully I get to expand on it, and hopefully it encourages people to also like get a little bit more loose with their action economies. It's been really fun to let players just chain together 7 or 8 actions in a turn and see what happens. Um,
Yeah. Sorry, I just stumbled across the a note about borscht again. I'm a mediocre cook, and I am 100% doing this as a bit.
Yep. And again, I will remind the audience that is very much true. That is spoken from the heart. If the recipes come out good, it will be because other people jumped in to save me.
Fair enough. So if you do Rod Reel and Fist second edition, can we count on some grilled fish recipes from you?
Um, Count on is a strong word, but I would like to do that. And I do have an expansion pack for Rod Reel that is currently cooking. It needs a little more time to get the mechanics right.
That salmon has to be in
But
the dishwasher for another cycle. Yeah, I get you.
yeah, Hook, Line, and Haymaker will come to Kickstarter eventually.
Sorry, I was not expecting such a good name. We'll have to talk about that when the time comes. Um,
I would love to.
I guess you could say I'm hooked. Sorry, you do good stuff.
Thank you.
Are there any other aspects of Deadbeats that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
Um, so a thing that is relevant to the game and that I think will impact how players experience the game is that this is a system that's kind of lopsided in its design. It puts a lot of energy into making the combat work, and outside of combat it backs way off. It has a very simple skill system. The basic idea is if you don't have a skill that's relevant to the situation, you pull a card, you add your stat, you try to hit the target number. If you do have a skill that's relevant to the situation, you just succeed. Unless it is unbelievably difficult, and then you need a skill to pull a card to try and hit the target number.
Right on.
It's very bare bones, but it's designed to make it so that when you're not in combat, you have a lot of narrative freedom. And when you are in combat and the mechanics click into place, then it's very deliberate and very satisfying is the hope.
I'm gonna put some points into my talk to people on the phone skill.
Yep.
God, I
Uh
should watch Chainsaw Man again. What a show.
yeah, all the material that inspired the game was definitely none of it was media I regretted consuming. Um That's
Yeah,
not always the case with my games. Sometimes I will write a whole system out of the experience of why did I put that in my brain. Um,
yeah,
but this was Evil Dead and Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen and Constantine Hellblazer and Devil May Cry, all bangers.
yeah. No, absolutely. And I've definitely watched some very mediocre to bad media in my time. I know how it goes. I watched all of Daybreak Illusion as it came out. What the hell was wrong with me? But
I don't know if I know that what that is. That
it's
sounds
it's
fascinating.
from the wave of Madoka knockoffs.
Oh,
And I was like, oh
oh,
man, tarot themed magical girls. This sounds awesome. And it was fine. It's okay.
oh, okay.
It was not worth watching week by week. I'll say that much.
Okay, that's totally fair.
Yeah. Um, can you tell me a little bit about the stretch goals?
Yeah. So the stretch goals are not super audacious. Because I wasn't sure how this project would be received, and it's funded, so I'm super happy with that, and we're headed towards our first goal. But I also didn't want to put things that would be difficult or extremely time consuming to fulfill. Um, in the goals themselves. So the first couple are adding new enemies and adding new equipment. And this does take a little bit of time because each suite of enemies is built around a sort of mechanical core. They all have one thing that they kind of share with how they work in the game. Um, and each suite of enemies includes one boss and one super boss, which are meant to be more complex, more challenging fights that take a little bit more time and testing to get right. Um, so the first three are dragons, necromancers, vampires. And then at 10K, we have an extra scenario, the Sloth class Apocalypse event. There's already three scenarios that are written into the book. One of them is like a very basic, here's a couple combats to get used to the game sort of gauntlet. One of them's a bit more open ended. And the third is a fully fleshed out town and a variety of locations to explore within that town. So there's room to sort of like tutorialize the game through the scenarios that I've written so far.
Right on.
And with that in mind, the Sloth Class Apocalypse event would be a much bigger scenario in scope than just the town you can explore.
Right on. I hope you hit that. Sloth class apocalypse event sounds hilarious, for one thing.
Yep.
It's like the episode of Justice League Unlimited where everybody's, falling asleep and getting their minds eaten. Batman has to like drive around blasting rock music and like showing up to Starbucks.
Yep. That is exactly the sort of vibe that I would be channeling.
Sorry, Justice League Unlimited was really good, and I'm trying not to think too hard about it. There were some good episodes in there.
Totally fine.
Yeah, no, like again, this seems excellent. The combat system sounds intriguing and fun. If there's one thing I love, it is high action, stylish combat. And again, art's fantastic. Like if you're watching this, please go to the link below in the comments. At least check it out. Back for a PDF. I hear it's environmentally friendly.
Yeah, it's at least not super environmentally harmful. It is just electricity.
Yeah.
Also, if you like the art and you really click with it, I did put a link at the bottom of the Kickstarter because Hodag did all of the interior art as physical pen and ink drawings. He has those pages in his possession. You can reach out to him if you'd like to obtain one to put on your walls. Um, this is not something I get a cut from. It's purely like between you and Hodag. But if you'd like to own some really neat RPG art, this is an opportunity.
God damn, that's tempting. God damn, that's real tempting. The real curse of this show is I am constantly tempted to spend huge amounts of money.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Just like walking into an RPG store is dangerous to the wallet, but like
Yeah,
you get a regular parade of really cool projects in front of you. That's even harder.
yeah. No, I'm a simple man these days. I go straight to the clearance section, find whatever weird stuff I can there.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that about covers everything. Is there anything we haven't hit on that you'd like to talk about?
I think we've hit all the major notes. I guess the other relevant detail is that I'd like to shout out the playtesters. This has been in playtesting for about a year. The whole squad is credited in the book and in one of the Kickstarter updates. They've done incredible work in taking this game from technically functional to a full-featured, fully fledged 100-page RPG. And that's 100 pages in pre-layout, so probably it's going to be like a 200-page book.
Wow, yeah, it's gonna be sick. Uh,
Thank you.
but yeah, thank you for coming on. It's been a joy to talk to you, and it's been very fun looking through all this lovely art. And yeah, no, I'm excited for this. Again, if you're watching this slash listening to this, there's a link in the comments. Go back this, get yourself a PDF, get yourself the full book. Maybe reach out to Hodog and Hodag. I don't remember how to say that.
Hodag,
Hodag.
Hodag, at Twitter.
Yeah, and see about getting yourself some sweet art of a demon CEO inhaling pizza at a distance. Sorry, it's incredible. Yeah, and I think that's about it for us. So have a good night, everybody.